Welcome to the Brighton Chamber of Commerce Expert Ed Seminar Series, the 5 steps to getting your audience to engage. I'm Ms. Cynthia Ely, owner of the Refinement Studio, LLC. I'm a UK certified international youth etiquette consultant, and paired with the experience I have in leadership development, I am now preparing the next generation of transformative leaders. Before we begin, I wanted to cover a couple of things for you. First of all, please take out the 5 steps to getting your audience to engage handout. I emailed that handout to you prior to this session. And what we're going to do with that is actually walk through the 5 steps required to create a presentation that will engage your audience. So in that handout, you'll be working with me through the whole seminar, step by step, plotting out how to create a presentation. So by the time you leave with me today, you're actually going to walk away with an outline of your next presentation. I also want you to now take a moment to think about the next presentation that you have to design. I've asked you to come prepared with that in mind, but if not, just take a moment to think about the next presentation you need to create, because it's that presentation I want you to think about today, and it's that presentation I want you to actually walk out the 5 steps with. So give a thought to that, get your handout out, and be prepared to do some work. I also want to encourage you to participate as much as you can, and of course, to complete the presenter evaluation that I will email to you after our seminar. Feedback is also important. So now let's get into the 5 steps to getting your audience to engage. I want to begin before I jump in by giving you an opportunity to participate for a chance to win an awesome prize. Each time you participate today, your name will be written down and put in a hat. And at the end, we will pick out an awesome leader. So I want you to take advantage and good luck. I want to begin our session by having you complete 2 statements. The first statement is, when it comes to creating presentations, I rock at, and I just want you to finish that out. What is it you rock at when it comes to presentations? You can either write that down on your handout or drop it in the chat box. Yes, I see somebody rocks at creating the slides, which is great. Feeling comfortable in front of a crowd, that's really important. That's great. So the reason I asked you to do this is it's always good to know what you do well, because before you could do this well, you didn't do it well, and you had to figure out how to do it. So it's good to remind ourselves where we were when we first started this and how we built our skill set up so that we became really great at certain parts of presentations and what we feel that we rock at. Now, what I want you to do is to answer or complete this statement. You know what it is you rock at. So now I want you to complete this statement. I want to crush them. I want to crush the parts, the presentations by learning how to, and I want you to finish that. What is it you want to learn how to do today? And you can either write that down on your handout or drop it in the chat box. Learn how to be calm in front of a group. That is always a challenge, isn't it? And learn how to create activities. That is an important part. And actually, those are 2 things that we will talk about today. So remember, I really wanted to start out with these questions because it's always good to know what your audience already knows. And what that does is it prevents you from having to go over content they already know. And you can also use those as an opportunity to motivate you to get to learn the things that you don't feel that you do really well. The second statement I asked you to complete is because I need to know what you want to know, what skill sets you want to develop, because that gives me an idea of what I need to focus on today. So it's always great to get that information from your audience or to begin a presentation that way. So it gives you an idea of what it is that you want to cover during that time. So thank you for letting me know that. So now let's jump in. The whole purpose of creating a presentation is to enable people to learn. Your mission is not to transfer information or drop this awesome content. Yes, that's important, but that's not the big piece. The mission really is to transform your learners. So today, my mission is to not only give you content, but I want to transform the way that you create your presentations so you can change your life. That is my purpose today. So I'm more focused on what you're going to walk away with, and is what you're going to walk away with going to transform you and your world. So now let's prepare for step one. So get those handouts out. Designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to whom it may concern. This made me chuckle because when we're writing a love letter, we want to make sure the exact person that we want to get it receives it. We don't want to leave that to chance. And so is the same with the presentation. We need to know who we were addressing our presentation to. So it's important to know who our audience is. So step one is for you to know your audience. In order for you to engage your audience, you have to know who they are. So what I want you to do now is to prepare step one of the handout. We're going to walk through some things, and then I'm going to give you a minute to write some things down. Step one is knowing your audience. You have to prepare your performance with them in mind, or you have to prepare your presentation with them in mind. And these are three key principles that or questions that you're going to ask. You want to know who they are. So you might want to know their age, what industry are they in, what kind of experience do they bring, what kind of profession they're in. That gives you an idea of who it is you're going to be around, and it kind of helps you to deliver it in a way that's for them. So that just gives you great background information. You also want to know, what do they need? What information do they need? What is it they need to know in order to do their presentation? Or what is it they need to know from you? Those are some of the things that you're going to ask yourself. And then you want to know what they fear, what keeps them up at night, what makes them anxious about what it is they need to learn. What is it that they feel awkward about? So when you are creating your presentation, step one is really vital, or else you're delivering to a chancy audience. So always know who your audience is and find that out by asking these key questions. So what I want you to do now is I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think about your next presentation. If you already know who your audience is, start to write down who they are and what they may need for you and what they may fear and how you're going to address that. If you don't have a presentation in mind, just give a thought to, how am I going to go about knowing my audience before I meet them? So kind of jot down some of the things you think you can do in order to get that information before your presentation. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Okay, and you could complete this and do a little bit of more work at it after the seminar. One of the things I did want to share with you is how to do this. So how do you know your audience? I don't know if you remember the email I sent out with the information that told you about this seminar. There were two things that I asked of you to prepare you for today. One was, what skill did you want to develop? What did you want to know? And the other was to come with the presentation in mind. So before I even began to create this presentation, I was getting from you, for those that decided to email that information to me, what skill do you want to learn? What is it you want to know? I took that and made sure that I created my presentation around that information. And that's the same thing you want to do. Find out that information as soon as you can and make sure that you include it in what it is that you're going to do. All right, so now let's go to step two. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it enough. Enough said. I love Albert. This is plain and simple. If you can't explain it in a couple of words, you don't know it well enough. So let's take a look at step two. In order to engage your audience, you're going to need to be able to identify and deliver the right content. Get your script and your acts right. You want to get the content and the topics of your presentation right, and you want to get them in the right order. And so this is how you do it. You're going to ask them what they want to know. If you tell me what you want to know I need to include that content. Ask them what they want to be able to do. So that's a skill identification there. Include that content in your presentation and include the steps to how to do it. People come to your presentation or they come to workshops because they've got a pain or a problem that they need fixing. They need an answer to a quandary. They need an answer to something that's stumping them. So the whole purpose to being in front of you is to get information from you. But more important than that is to walk away with some steps or how to fix it. And so what you want to make sure you do is, after you deliver the great content, Yes, you want to show them how to do it because that's how you transform a learner. You transform them by giving them the skills or giving them the steps and the frameworks they need to figure out their problem. And that's what's going to change their life, which will in part help to change their audience's life. So make sure you do that. I know some people don't like to give steps away. They don't like to give the answer away because they want to get people to come back to them. But you know what? As much content as you deliver to someone and give to them, they can find that out on the internet on their own. But the special part of that information is that in order for them to truly understand it and use it, they need someone like you with your expertise in using it to answer their questions. So you're never giving something away that you can't get back. And showing them the steps will solidify that relationship, and they're still going to need to come back to you, because having the information and having the steps, but not having the experience of working it out, it's still going to require an expert like you to walk them through it. So just keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to give you about 60 seconds again to write out for your step 2 in your handout, based on the presentation you're working on, what are the topics and what is the content you're going to need to develop and include and deliver to your audience in order to give them what they need. So I want to give you about 60 seconds to write that out. What is the content you have to make sure you include in your presentation? Okay, and you can continue working on this when you get home. So now on to step 3. We're really working through this quickly, aren't we? The success of your presentation will be judged not by the knowledge you send, but by what the listener receives. So content is important. You've got to share information. You got to share content in order for them to get it. But it's not the end all. You know, audiences don't really care so much about how much we know. They're focusing on what it is we share with them and what it is that they could do with it. That's really what's important to them. So no matter how much you drop, how awesome it is, at the end, they need to have something they could do something with. And that is what makes step 3 so important. In order for you to engage your audience, you need to use interactive activities. The way that I can make a listener walk away feeling that they have something meaningful is to allow them the opportunity to work through it, to work through those steps you're teaching them, because that's what's helping them to begin right away, building the skills they're going to need to do what they need to do. And that's what I'm doing with you today. I need to not only give you information, I have to give you opportunities to work it out so that the chances of your success in doing what I share with you today is going to be increased. So it's not only you're getting information from me, I'm going to walk you through some things. I'm going to make it interactive so that you're starting to practice those things, and you're more likely to continue that after the seminar today and actually do it. So that's just something for you to think about. When you're delivering your content, another thing for you to consider is that what you deliver should answer the audience's question. How is what you're teaching me going to change my world? Or how is what you're teaching me going to change my life? That's what's meaningful to them. So let's take a look at the use of interactive activities. I always tell audiences, if you hear laughter, claps, and giggles, or if people's arms shoot up as soon as you ask a question, that means you've engaged them. So those are telltales that everything is going well. So let's take a look at how you create them. You want to create simple interactive activities that allow your audience to practice while you're teaching them, and we're doing that today. You always want to make sure that you relate the activity to the content and the skill that you are teaching or covering. You also want to test the recall. That's an opportunity for you to include slides that ask them questions, and you can have them drop those questions in the chat box. That's how you get engagement. That's how you get interaction. The chat box is especially important for our friends who are introverts. It takes some time to process things out, but they don't necessarily want to unmute and share with the world what they want. They feel a little bit more comfortable using the chat box. So those are some things to think about. And then you also want to complete an exercise. Have them do something. Break in twos, break in threes, answer a question, fill something out. You explain what it is the exercise is. You give them an example of how to run through it, and then you have them run through it. All of those things engages them, and it makes the content come to life, and it gives them hope that, oh my gosh, I'm getting closer to my answer. So that is what's important about using interactive activities. So now I want you to go to your handout and look at step 3. I want you to write out, keeping your presentation you're creating in mind, just list. You're going to brainstorm. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for this one. I just want you to write all of the possible activities you can include in your presentation. Don't edit it. Don't say, that doesn't make good sense. I'm not sure that'll work. And actually, it's the one you don't think that works will usually be the one that does. Just let your brain dump everything out on the piece of paper. So right now, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to list all the things you think you could add as an interactive activity. All right, here are your 30 seconds. Okay. And so you can continue brainstorming that list. And that's when your creativity really goes to play. And that's how you can make your presentations fun, because you could come up with some pretty cool interactive activities that are simple to do in a virtual world like we're in today. Of course, if you're in person and you have more time, you could make them quite sophisticated. And if you really have a lot of time, you can actually do full out simulations. So that just gives you an idea of how you could get people engaged and make the learning and the content come alive for them. All right, so now, there's an opportunity here. Here's your opportunity to get your name dropped in the hat for a chance to win the prize. So this is what we're going to do. I want you to answer this question. You can either write it down for yourself on your handout, but I really would love for you to drop it in the chat box. I want you to answer this question. What are the 3 steps to engaging your audience? We've covered 3 steps right now. I want you to write them down in the chat box for me so you have a chance to have your name put into the hat. It would be awesome if they were in the right order, but if they're not, that's okay. I just want to see the 3 steps and if you could recall them. Yes, 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 yes. Those are the 3 steps we've covered so far. So remember, you got to know your audience. You have to identify and deliver the right content. And the third one we just went over, we have to use interactive activities. So that's great. Those are the 3 steps that we've covered so far. And that's the beginning of how you engage your audience. All right, good luck with that. So now let's get to step 4. We're going through this really quickly. If you think presentations cannot enchant people, then you have never seen a really good one. As I like that quote. One of the things that sticks out to me is enchant might not be a word that you would use. When I think about enchanting, I think about Sherwood Forest, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. I think of pixies and fairies and twinkly things. That's what I think about enchantment. You can make a presentation that's enchanting if that is the kind of theme that you have, or the people you're delivering to, the people you're doing things for have that kind of environment, or it's that kind of presentation. But what I do want to share with you is that presentations are different. They're designed differently and they have a different purpose. Today, mine is more instructive and informational. I use the theme, or I use the metaphor of a theater, as you can tell. I made sure my slides gave you a little indication of a theater, and I'm kind of revealing to you what's behind the scenes, what's behind the curtains of creating a great performance, because presenting is performing. And so you might also be doing a presentation that's meant to motivate or inspire, in which case the feel's going to be different and the slides are going to look different. And so one of the things I want you to think about is, who are you presenting to? What theme do they have? What feel are they looking for, and to make sure your things match that. So enchantment might be one, but motivation and inspiration could be another. And of course, when you do things differently, the whole look, packaging, and feel will be differently as well. All right, so let's get to the fourth step here. Step 4 is creating an atmosphere. If you want to engage your audience, you have to create an atmosphere. Now, when we go to the theater people use props, wardrobes, the sounds and the lights. They use the background, they use everything. That's how they create the atmosphere. You're doing the same thing when you're presenting to an audience. Now, if you're in person, it's so much easier to create an atmosphere because you're physically connected, your energy's in the room, you're at the audience, you're within touching distance, you can walk the room. There's a lot more to do with lighting. There's a lot more that you could do with props. So in an in-person setting, it's so much easier to do this. So it's a little bit more challenging when you're doing it virtually. But let's take a look at some of the things that will help you to create the atmosphere that you want to create. I call it the ABCs of platform skills. You need to develop platform skills, whether you're actually on a stage in an in-person setting. You have to create the atmosphere, and you have to use those skills when you're up there in a way to engage them. Or you could be at ground level on the floor in front of your audience, and you want to use these skills to engage them. Or today I'm doing this virtually. I'm trying to use these things in order to engage you. So let's take a look at the ABCs. A stands for appearance. Very, 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 very important, especially when you're meeting people for the first time. If you're presenting to people or an audience that you don't know, they are going to judge you based on your appearance until they are around you long enough or hear your presentation enough to get an idea of who they think you are, what you're about, what is it you stand for, and how comfortable they can be with you. So appearance is really important. Of appearance, the two that I always focus on is your dress. Regardless of whether you're virtual or in person, you still want to show up dressed appropriately as a professional representing your brand and representing your reputation. Now, that dress will change depending on who you're presenting to and in what area and what capacity. So for instance, if you're being asked to do a presentation on safety and you happen to be out in the woods because the group you're delivering to is about to go do some nature hike for team building, you might not want to wear your skirt and heels. You might not want to wear your suit. You might not wear something that's more office, that is really for the office. You're probably going to wear something that looks like something you would wear in the woods. So you're going to make sure you've got boots on. If you need to, you're going to have khakis on. You're going to look a little different, but you're always going to remain professional in your dress and professional in your appearance, because that's what you need to come across as an authority and as an expert on what it is that you're sharing. The other thing that I share with people is facial expressions. When you're meeting someone for the first time, my dress will tell you everything you need to know about me, or a lot of it, but also my facial expressions. We as humans feel faster than we think. So that means our emotions register on our face and in our body before our mind can tell us, don't show that look. Don't look mad. Don't look disappointed. So that's something that you have to work on if your telltales are quick. So in our appearance, we want to be warm. We want to smile. We want to look like we're engaged. We want to look like we're enjoying ourselves. If we're doing a presentation and our facial expressions are warm and inviting, and if our dress is nice and pleasant to look at and represents us in a positive light, chances are you're going to win part of your audience over. They are going to engage and they're interested in what you have to say. If you come looking totally different, if you come totally inappropriate or was questionable, they might question the information coming out of you. So those are just some things to think about. Remember, when we're doing that first impression, meeting someone for the first time, they're deciding a lot about you within the first 7 seconds. And if they don't know you, the only thing they could go by in that moment is your appearance. And remember, when our appearance includes our facial expressions, I'm going to get to the body in a moment. When people look at that, you want to make sure it is communicating openness, warmth, fun, and all of those things. If you're scared to death, your body's not going to look that way, nor are your facial expressions. So keep in mind, if you're scared to death, try to relax. It's normal. Just try to relax, smile a little bit, talk your body into relaxing so you could look warm and that you're enjoying this and that all is well. Remember, when we're in a plane, and it's turbulent and the turbulence gets a little rough there, we look at the stewardess. If the stewardess looks like she's calm, collected, it's normal, we relax and we're confident that the flight is going to be okay. But if her face is saying something totally different, you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to crash. So keep that in mind when you're up front. What we look like and how we show ourselves is what is going to get our audience to engage with us at a level they feel safe. So let's talk about be the body. We talked about dress and facial expressions. That's the appearance part of us. The body part of us is eye contact. You know, if you ask me a question and I'm answering you, or I'm even noticing you, eye contact is important. Eye contact means I'm engaged with you. You matter to me. You're important, and what you're asking me is important. Very key. If you don't have eye contact when you're interacting, that just communicates something that makes people get suspect or want to disengage. Your voice. Now, in an in-person setting, we always want to use our voice so it projects in the back of the room. We don't want to scream, but we want to do that. In a virtual setting, I don't have to talk so loudly, don't have to do that so much, but I could use my voice to tell a story. Think about when you tell a story to your little one. You modulate your voice, the volume goes up, the volume goes down. You might get closer to your child. You might go back. You use your voice and your body in order to create an atmosphere and tell a story. The same happens virtually or in person. So use your body as an instrument, as a tool to continue to give that information and to welcome people into your world. So that's what you want to do. Eye contact is key. How you use your voice is key. Especially if you're a podcaster. Think about the voice you use when you're podcasting and no one's looking at your face. That's all they have to go by. Is your voice rich? Is it soft? Is it sweet? Is it inviting? Is it something that's going to soothe you? So think about that and how you show up in your voice and how you show up in your body. Body language is important. Are my arms crossed or are they open? Do I seem stiff or do I seem relaxed? Your body will also give off an indication on whether someone's safe to talk to you or not. So let's talk about someone who's open and warm and fun, that you feel engaged with, that you can ask a question of. You don't feel a question is a silly question. They're going to answer you. They're going to acknowledge you. That's a really cool environment to be in. But then think about the presenter who might be a little more stiff. I'm here to give information. I'm here to tell you the rules. I'm here to give you some steps, and that's it. And then I leave. And so I'm just here to give you what it is that I know. The body could be rigid. The face may be a poker face. It may not be warm. Not that they're mean, but they're there for a different reason. They're there to give information, and they're just going do, 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 do. That's not going to get you as engaged as the warm person would. Their body's going to look different, and it may make you feel uncomfortable to approach them. It may make you feel uncomfortable to ask a question. And the whole purpose of you being in front of someone is to get the information they have and to get the steps on how to solve a problem. And if someone's not going to create an atmosphere that is safe or that is warm, you're not going to engage, they're not going to engage you, and you're not going to get what it is that you went there for. You're not going to get what you need. So that's just something to think about. Creating an atmosphere really takes a lot of work. It's not hard, but it takes a lot of different things happening all at once to get people engaged, especially when it's a virtual setting. Now let's go to charms. I call them charms, or the cool things, the shiny things that just make everything sparkle together. Think about when you go to a play. Yes, you've got settings and you've got props and you've got lighting, and those things draw you into the story, draw you into the action. But what you really like are all the sparkly things, the little things, the jewelry maybe they wear, or the sparkly things that are all over the set, or maybe things they have hanging off the stage. They're like the little charms that kind of just get you to come into their story a little bit more. Well, we have charms that we use when we're doing presentations. I like to think of slides that way. Slides just give people something to think about, but they help create the atmosphere. They help create the story. My metaphor for the stage, I use the slides that I'm using the language that they use in theater. Those are just little charms that make the atmosphere seem a little bit more magical, a little bit more interesting. The chat box, that's an awesome way to create an atmosphere. It means that I want to hear what you have to say. I want you to use it. And so you engage people that way who feel that that's a safer method of communicating with the presenter. Also, when you have a nice large group and people are excited, all it takes is a couple of people writing in the chat box and boom, it explodes, and then it's going so quickly and people are answering so fast, you can't even watch and catch what people are saying. That's when energy is released and people are excited about what they're learning, what they're doing, sharing their best practices, and that's how you create an awesome atmosphere, and that is how you get your people engaged. Backgrounds. Now, there are two kinds of backgrounds when you're doing things virtually. You can either have a background like I have today. I call it the natural background, meaning I'm in a room, and in the room is what you see and behind me. I keep it easy and clean and plain and non-distracting. There are muted colors. So these are soft colors, warm colors, things for you to look at, but nothing that's going to take your attention. So you can have that kind of background in your house where everything is just kind of muted, but it's pleasant to look at. You don't want to have signs. You don't want to have words. They tend to come up backwards. You don't want to have things that people are reading or are going to take their attention away from what it is that you're saying. So you just kind of have what I call a natural background. So if there's a place in your house where you can just create a really nice background that blends everything and makes things look nice, that's helpful. If it actually links into your theme, that's even better. This would have really been a cool background if I actually had this happen or had myself in a virtual place. If I was actually on a stage, maybe I'll do that next time. If I delivered this and I was on a stage, that would have been awesome. But those are some of the creative things that you could do to continue on your theme and keep people engaged. So here I'm in my house and this is in a room. And so that's what my background looks like. But there's also a virtual background that people get. I don't know very much about it, but here's what I do know, that if you do get a virtual background, you want to make sure you have a green screen, and then you project your virtual background onto that. You want to get a high resolution virtual background that's nice and that looks real. You don't want to get a background that doesn't look real. It looks like you've been cut out and just slapped on the back of the virtual background, and you don't blend in with it seamlessly. It isn't one continuous picture. It doesn't look like you're actually there. It looks like you're sitting in front of a virtual background. So you don't want to have that kind of image. It will detract from what it is you're trying to do, and it will have your people thinking and looking at things and paying attention to things they shouldn't be and missing on the things that you're saying. So when you don't have a virtual background that works all well together, some of the things that can happen, and I'm sure you've seen this before, all of a sudden the person's face are pixels that may come and go, or parts of them kind of disappear into the background and then reappear. Those are all distracting, but they also indicate the quality of what it is that you're doing. So if you're going to do a virtual background, use the green screen, get a high resolution virtual background image, and make sure that you look like you're actually there. So those are some of the charms you could do to keep people engaged, to give them something to look at, and keep them wanting to hear more and more and more. So when it comes to platform skills, these are the things you want to develop. Make sure for your appearance, your dress is appropriate, your facial expressions are linked up with your body language, and it's all welcoming, warm, and nice. Maintain eye contact, make sure you're engaged, let people know that they matter to you and that you see them. People want to be seen. It's easier to do in the in-person, but I'm looking at you now and hopefully you feel very engaged with me right now. And then make sure that your charms are cool. And so those are the things that you can do to keep your people engaged. So now I'll give you about 60 seconds to go ahead and think about some of the things you want to work on when it comes to your platform skills. Just think about the things that you want to focus on that maybe you didn't think about before or you would like to further develop. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, and you could do a little bit more of that when you get home. Okay, so now we're coming up to step 5. For step 5, we're almost there. The more you practice, the better you become. The better you become, the more freedom you have to create. Exactly. This is exactly the truth. If you know at least 75% of your presentation by heart, you will use the slides minimally. You don't feel connected to it. Now, if you're an in-person setting, there's nothing worse than you feeling like you don't remember your lines or you don't remember what you have to say, and you feel tied to that screen, tied to that overhead, too afraid to walk away because you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to miss anything. If you know 75%, it frees you up to walk the room, to go off script, to not have to look at the screen all the time. The screen with the content in it is for your for your audience. It gives they're hearing what you're saying and taking notes, but they're also looking at your slides to write down the things that they don't have perhaps in their handout. So if the more you know, the more freedom that you have. You could go off script, you could tell a story, you could tell a joke, you could walk the room, you can engage with someone right away in the moment and they go back to your slides. So when we talk about freedom, that's what we're talking about. The more I know, the easier it is for me to deliver what I'm doing. So keep that in mind. In order to engage your audience, here's step 5, you need to know your lines. You need to know the breadth and the depth of your play. You need to know the breadth and depth of your presentation. Think about it. When you're at a theater, you're going there to watch a performance. You're going there to have some fun. The thing you don't want to see are people who forget their lines. You're going there for a great, great, great show. And imagine being at a play or being at the theater and you've got someone off stage yelling the lines to someone on stage and people are forgetting their lines. It just ruins the whole experience. The same thing with presentations. If you're forgetting your lines, it's not going to be able to engage your audience. So let's take a look at some of the things that you could do to practice, to increase your confidence, and to help you get through that presentation and remember your lines. Practice it over and over and over and over and over again out loud until you know it without looking at it. Now, I say out loud because the practice you do inside your head is totally different than the practice you do out loud. When we are reading things in our head, everything is perfect. Everything is right. Your timing is awesome. You're getting through the slides. You're saying the words. You're not doing and ah. You're not hesitating. You're doing it quickly. The timing of it is quicker. Everything is smooth. But the moment you read it out loud, everything changes because now you're hearing your voice. Now you're delivering information. Now you're adding a little bit more. Now the timing is a little longer. Now you're figuring out how to fill up the space. So then it becomes something different. So it's really important that when you practice your presentation, you do so out loud. Have someone observe you. They can give you feedback. Record yourself. If you're doing a total audio with no picture on, think about your voice. Listen to your voice. Is it inviting? Is it changing? Is it drawing you in? Videotape yourself. That's probably the best feedback you could get. If you're in an in-person setting, videotape yourself. See how you show up. You can't argue with the video. You did what you did. You said what you said, and that's the way it is. It's great feedback because it lets you know what kind of idiosyncrasies you may have, some of the things that you do, and it just gives you an idea of how you show up to the world. So that's great feedback, and that will help you in your delivery skills. And then, of course, have the audience complete a presentation for you. The more feedback you get, the better you'll become at presenting, the more comfortable you become at doing it. And people are going to start to seek you out. They're going to ask you to present for different things. What this does is this is transformative for you. You're learning how to do this now so you could rock it, so you could crush it, so people come seeking you out. And so then that increases your brand name. It increases your presence. It gets you to learn different people, know different people. It increases your audience, your potential clients, and your work. So those are all of the other benefits of doing this well. Now, I got a little piece of information at the bottom of the screen. Nothing kills a presentation like a string of ahs, ums, and hums, and filler words. We are all nervous at times. And that's normal. But we want to stop ourselves before we start going into the ahs and the ums and using those filler phrases. Sometimes people use the same filler phrase. You know what I mean? Or awesome, or something like that. You know what you got it? You know what I'm saying? Those are all filler phrases. Those are the same things as saying People generally use that when they feel like they have to fill up space, and they don't. Silence is okay. And so what I tell people is if they feel a coming on or a filler phrase coming on, just stop and close their mouth, think about what they want to say, and then say it. You do not have to fill up space. Silence is okay. And sometimes you could give silence to give people an opportunity to do something, to give introverts a moment to catch up, and to really think about what you want to say. So silence is an okay thing. So that's it. Keeping your people engaged, know your lines, because they're coming to see a show and they want to be wowed. All right. So here we are. We're at the end of our time, almost there. What are the 5 steps to engaging your audience? This is your time to get your name written down and put in the hat as a chance to win the prize. So I want you to take a moment to write down the 5 steps of engaging your audience. You could drop it down in the chat box. Yes, here we are. Here we are. Those are the 5 steps. Of course, it'd be awesome to do it in the order, but that's okay. If you do all 5, that's awesome too. So you got to know your audience. You have to identify and deliver the right content. You have to use interactive exercises. Of course, you want to create a really great open and warm atmosphere. And the 5th one is knowing your lines. So these are the 5 steps, and they are not just the only steps. There are others, but these are the 5 that I think are the most critical in getting your audience to engage. And so now there are a couple of things I want to do because we're rounding up. So before we end, I want to ask this question. You could write the answer to it. You could write the answer to it on your handout, or you could drop it in the chat box. Excuse me for one moment. I've got a dog that's barking. See, this is real life, and I have to tell her not to do that. Just one moment, please. Okay, so that's how we use the mute button like a pro. All right, so here's the question. What will you do differently in your next presentation? Give that some thought. You've heard some things today. Some of it may be new, some of it you may have already know, but always look for something that you can change and do differently. So identify that, write that down, and that could be the one thing you're going to do differently next time. Very important things. And now, in order to increase your success, I've added some information that I didn't have really time to go into depth, but there are things that I do want to share with you because I want you to be successful in this. So these are performance tips. Now, you want to make sure that your slides are engaging and use pictures and colors. We did a little bit of that today. We talked about it. We talked about practice, practice, practice. Got to do that as well. Make sure you get enough sleep the night before. Make sure you eat lightly and you're hydrated when you're doing your presentation, especially if you're in a in-person setting. Know the climate. Is it a hot room, a cold room? Is the lighting too bright? You want to be able to dress appropriately and make sure that you're comfortable in that setting because it will help you to deliver your presentation better. But also, it's nice for the audience. They'll feel comfortable. Be prepared to use your mute and video off buttons. When you're at home, you've got animals that talk to you when you don't want them to, or you have children who run behind you and they hit that camera. And so that's when you want to be able to turn off the mute so people don't have to hear what's going on, or turn off your video and you could still speak to the group and let them know why the video's off. We just live in those times, and those are the things that happen when we work from out of the house. So those are just some things to think about when you're performing. And above all, relax. You know, people don't know what you were going to say in your presentation. They don't know if you skipped something. They don't know if you've missed something. They don't even know if you did something wrong. So I want you to relax and keep that in mind. Nobody knows what it is that you're going to present. So nobody knows what it is you were going to say. So nobody is going to know whether you make a mistake or not. Really, what's important is that you've delivered some great information. You've given them steps on how to do it. You've made it a fun experience to them, and you've increased the likelihood of them doing it after they're finished with you. That's what counts. And chances are, in a pickle, in a pinch, you're always going to share what works best for you so that you'll never, ever go wrong. So those are some of the things I want you to remember when it comes to performance. There's also time where there's additional information needed. Now, here's some things that you're going to need to know. I had limited time today, couldn't include this, but you're going to want to learn the adult learning principles. It actually were the adult learning theories that came out in the 60s from Mr. Knowles. I can't think of his first name right now, but he created them. People have used them and have adapted them for their own use, but this is important information. You might want to take a picture of this screen. I'm dropping it in the text, the links in the text, but you want to take a picture of this screen just to have it after we're finished here. But adult learning principles are the things you need to know about how adults learn. This link is to the individual, to Mr. Knowles. It gives information about him. He's no longer alive, doesn't have a website, but you can learn a little bit about him and where he came up with his theories. I am going to actually provide a list of the principles to you after the seminar. When I email you the evaluation form to complete on me, I'm also going to email you the adult learning principles that I've adapted and put in plainer English. It's information that you'll find valuable when you're creating presentations or even teaching opportunities for adults. The second thing you're also going to need to know are your learning styles. You may already know your learning style, which is great. If you don't, this link will take you to a website where you can complete the questionnaire and find out what your learning style is. You're going to see VARK, V-A-R-K, all over it. VARK are the 4 learning styles. V is for visual, A is for oral or auditory. R is for reading and writing, as K is for kinesthetic. Those are the 4 ways that most of us learn. Some people are strongly 1, some could be 2 to 3, but go and take it. Find out what your learning style is. I do want to let you know there are 2 things that are going to be asked of you when you go to the site. Number 1 is, do you want to be part of their study and give them some information on you? Because this is kind of a research site. They're collecting all of the people who are completing these questionnaires to find out how many people are showing up in what area. Don't feel obligated to do that if you don't want to, but you can still take it and still find out what your learning style is. They will also offer you the opportunity to purchase the full report on your learning style, which isn't a bad thing. It'll give you more information. I don't remember how much it is. It's not a whole lot of money, but don't feel obligated to buy that either. So these are the 2 pieces of information you're going to want to need to know, because it's going to help you when you design your next presentation. Now, did I walk this all out? Did I do what I said I was going to do? I was going to walk you through everything it is that I'm teaching you. So here's what it looks like. Did Miss Cynthia Walker talk? Well, I did use the adult learning principles. The information was relevant and practical. The presentation was goal-oriented. I told you what I was trying to do. It solved 1 or more of your problems. It allowed for instant application, and it respected your time. You're pressed for time. I tried to keep it short and sweet. It also included all the learning styles. I had pictures and colors for those that are visual. I use global and analytical thinking tactics. So if you notice, before every step, I had a quote. That quote was the global view of what I was going to share with you. And the actual slide with the step was the more analytical. This is the step and all of its parts, because some people are global thinkers and some people need specifics. So I met that need. And then I used reading, writing, question and answer, and worksheets. Those are all ways that people learn and helps them to retain and really incorporate the information. I made it interactive. I encourage you to use emojis in the chat box. I also included opportunities for recall. Do you remember this? List that. That kind of helps you to remember. And then I walked through the entire process with the handout. There is nothing more than actually walking you through the whole process. That's what's powerful. That's what you call an interactive activity. And you guys are leaving with something that you're going to use. I gamified it, really simply, but gamified it. I encourage you to engage by offering you a prize. And then I wanted to increase your success. So I wanted you to learn this, know it, do it, try it, and be successful at it. I included tips, provided additional information you wanted to know, and then demonstrated how to implement the content. That's you walking through the whole process. So those are the things that I did to make sure that what I taught you, I actually did myself. And so now it's time to pick the winner. Now it's time to pick the winner of the drawing. And that is Dennis Shrew. Dennis Shrew, lucky man, you have won C-Ray's Thought Pops. And these Thought Pops are so cool. You could use these when you're doing virtual thing to say, Miss Cynthia, we loved you and loved your presentation. We give you a 2 thumbs up. and we cannot wait to see you. Fare thee well. So these are thought pops. It's another way to interact and get your with your audience and to get them to engage with you. You might want to think of ordering these, giving them out as gifts yourself. And so, Dennis, this is what you get. Please let me get your address so I can send those to you directly. You have been an awesome, awesome, gracious audience. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making time for being with us today. My name is Miss Cynthia. If you have any questions, if you need more information, please email me. My email is misscynthia@therefinementstudio.com. Again, Miss Cynthia at therefinementstudio.com. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at another seminar, and have a great day.